it's Mary, and today I'm going to be doing my review of The Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan. And I may be thinking, Mary, it came out yesterday. How can you possibly be done with it already? It was just that good. I have already read it. I finished it earlier today, and now I am ready to review it. I am so excited to talk about this one. It is one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and I've already finished it. It's awesome. I can't wait to talk about it. This was an amazing book. I loved seeing the world from Apollo's point of view. So if you don't know, the premise of this book is that after the war with Gaia and the heroes of Olympus, Zeus blamed Apollo for the war and has sentenced him to become a mortal and serve someone for a year or two until he deems himself worthy enough to be a god again. And this has happened twice in mythology, and Rick Riordan decided to put it into a book, and I'm really glad that he did. Apollo can be really annoying at times. Like, the first half of the book is just him complaining, but his point of view is so funny and really insightful to humanity that I really enjoyed it, and I can tell that his character is going to develop a lot more, and he's going to become a little bit more humble, or as humble as Apollo can be throughout the rest of the series, and I'm really anxious to see that development. We do get to see some of our friends from the previous series, and that's really nice, but we really do focus on Apollo. We get to meet a lot of new characters from Camp Half-Blood, and we get to explore Camp Half-Blood a lot more than we get to in a lot of the other series. This does take place during the Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard series, because if you've read any of the preview snippets that's been out in the media, he does go to Percy as soon as he can to find his way to Camp Half-Blood. And what do you think? He asks where Annabeth is, and Annabeth is in Boston. What happens in Boston? Magnus Chase! So it happens at the exact same time as Magnus Chase, and so I'm really interested to see if these are going to overlap, or if we get to see any of the other characters that we meet in that series. It's just going to be really interesting. And of course, you just love the way that Rick Riordan writes this. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what I like about it. I love the cover art. The colors are just great, and there's like a little sun where Apollo is, and this is like the new emblem here. Let's see if I can't get it to focus. And it's basically a circle. It says Trials of Apollo, and it's got the A, but the line through it is a arrow, since he is the god of archery, which you can tell by the archery here in the front. And I really like this part. It's really nice. There's the symbol again. If you didn't know, the first book in both of the other Percy Jackson series are this exact same color. I don't know if he did that on purpose, but I love it. I just think that's really cool because you can like put them next to each other, like it's the first of each series. I got this one at Books A Million, and I was really disappointed because I woke up late, and so the one signed copy that they had already been sold the moment the doors opened. I was like, if only I'd gotten up earlier. But all the Books A Million copies came with this awesome bumper sticker that says, "I'd rather be driving my sun chariot." And of course, I'm not going to stick it on my car. I think it's a little tacky, and I'm not big on the bumper sticker thing. But I am going to stick it to a piece of paper and stick it up on my wall like the rest of my book posters. And I've been using it as a bookmark lately. And finally, before I get to the spoilery section, we have funny chapter titles again. It's nothing like, I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher, or Annabeth does dog training, or my mother teaches me bullfighting, or anything like that. It's, they're all in haikus, and if you remember from the Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Titan's Curse, we actually get to meet Apollo for our first time, and he's just finished his trip from Japan, and he's obsessed with these haikus. And so, like, the first chapter is, "Hoodlums punch my face. I would smite them if I could. Mortality blows." And so you just get to see his sarcasm and everything, and it's just really interesting. So that's it for the non-spoilery section. I'm going to go into depth on this book, so if you have not read it, go pick it up. I definitely suggest reading the others beforehand because it relates a lot to this one. So go do that and then come back. So a couple things have happened since we left the Heroes of Olympus series, so I'm going to recap, which is Leo died, he came back to life, he got Calypso, and he has sent a letter to Camp Half-Blood, but communications are down. So this is basically what the letter says. So Leo's created those hologram things, so it's like this little hologram of Leo, and it says, "Hey guys," Leo spread his arms for a hug. "Sorry to leave you like that. Bad news, I died. Good news, I got better. I had to go rescue Calypso. We're both fine now. We're taking Festus too." The image guttered like a flame and strong breeze, disrupting Leo's voice. "Back as soon as..." Static. "Cook tacos when..." More static. "Vaya con queso. Love ya." The image winked out. So that is the only connection with Leo that they have gotten since he's been found out that he's not dead. And I think that's hilarious. He's like, "I'm not even going to come back home. We're just going to go make tacos or something." And they don't even know where he is. And so they've been trying to find him, but school started back. And so that's what's with Leo. The Roman kids are back at Camp Jupiter, and Annabeth is currently up working with Magnus, and Percy is studying for his SATs so that he can get into the New Rome University with Annabeth. So we get to see a little bit of Percy. He's like, when Apollo comes to the door, he's like, "Really? Really? I am not getting into any of these big prophecies." And I'm like, good for you. You deserve a happy life. But Apollo gets cast down to Earth and falls into the garbage. And he's like, a god should never have to fall into the garbage. He keeps referring to himself as this god, even though he's 100% mortal. Percy even questions if he can get into Camp Half-Blood because he's so mortal. And the nectar and ambrosia that can work even for Half-Bloods is not even working for Apollo, which has got to be killing him on the inside. Just saying. He can't have nectar and ambrosia, so now he has to settle for, what was it he had? What was it he had? Hot dogs, bug juice, and tater chips. He's like, ode to hot dog. I'm like, he seems to make the best out of everything, yet he's so self-absorbed up until the last of the book, where he's made this oath to protect Meg. So let's talk about Meg for a minute. Meg is this girl who saves him from these hoodlums? I think it's hoodlums. Anyways, and she saves him from these hoodlums. And at first I thought that she was going to be a child of Apollo. And he's mentioned so many times how he doesn't have his perfect memory anymore. But she had like that perfect aim with that rotten apple. So it was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. He's tied to his child, and that's got to be awkward. It's going to be awesome. No. It gets better. She is a child of Demeter, and she has these two double-wielded scythes, and I don't even know how you hold scythes or wield scythes, because they like curve, and I'm like, I'm going to poke myself with them if I ever use a scythe, so I think I'll stick with a sword or a bow and arrow or something. And then he gets mad. Apollo gets mad that he can't use his godlike perfection. He can't use his godlike perfection on any of the stuff that he's used to, like medicine or music or archery, and now he has to, oh god, practice. And so he swears on the river Styx. He swears on the river that he can't, or that he will not use a musical instrument or a bow and arrow until he becomes a god again. Which is stupid because then he ends up breaking the oath, and that's supposed to be one that like kills you over time and if it's broken, and I'm interested to see how that's going to take a play into the next series because he has broken it multiple times now. And I'm super curious to see how Rick Riordan's going to use that against him because these are the trials of Apollo and his trials have to be hard. So Meg claims Apollo as her servant, and so he is now bound to her. And she's like this 12-year-old girl doing cartwheels, and he's like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? So they make their way to Percy's house, and Percy is like, I don't want anything to do with this. I will take you to Camp Half-Blood, and that's it. So he does, and they run into these, they're these plague spirits. And Meg ends up summoning this, Karpos, which there were wheat ones that we saw in the Percy Jackson series, and they were just crazy. Well, this one's from a peach tree, and all he says is peaches. And Percy goes, why is he Grooting? And they were like, what? And he's like, you know, like that character in that movie, I am Groot. I was like, yes, like, pop culture for the win. I love Marvel, so this was just perfect. And Meg's like, I don't know, I didn't summon him, but don't hurt him, he's not gonna hurt you. And so, he like bit the head off of this plague spirit, and I'm like, man, that's a little violent. You might want to kill that thing. And she's like, no, don't kill it, it saved her lives. And so they're like, okay, fine. So they come in through the back side of Camp Half-Blood, and you don't really see how big camp is until you actually get to this book, I don't think. I never imagined the woods being that big. So in the regular Percy Jackson series, we don't see a lot of Camp Half-Blood because they're so busy saving the world. And so this is the picture that we are given in the survival guide. So we see some of the cabins, and we see the campfire, and I'm sure the pavilion is on like that side down there. But the woods just never seemed that big to me because it was like, oh, there's Zeus's fist, and there's the entrance to the labyrinth as well, and there's the creek. And then there's a little bit of extra woods, but I never imagined them being that big. Well, this book gives you a map and let's see. Here are the cabins. That's where we spend most of our time. Here's the woods. This whole side of the page is the woods. And so we spend almost the entire book in the woods of Camp Half-Blood. They don't leave Camp Half-Blood once they get there. And so I was just really shocked at how big the woods was once I got to see all the details. I think that was the biggest realization for me. When they finally got through the woods and they hear all these voices and everything and they get into camp, Apollo meets his son, Will Solus, who is dating Nico D'Angelico. So, yes, that happened. We don't get to see too much of them, but we know they went on a canoe ride and that they partnered in the three-legged death race and a lot of other things. And so Nico's actually living at camp, and so that's nice. It's the first time that I think he's ever felt at home. And so I feel like really happy for Nico. I'm glad that my characters are happy. And I'm sure that we'll definitely get to see more of those characters. But what stood out to me was that I had looked up a lot of what the fans were thinking were going to happen to these characters. And a lot of them mentioned, the Will and Nico relationship. They're like, oh, Will's gonna, like, use Nico as an armrest. And they were, like, talking about all these, like, really cute, funny things. And that actually happens in the book. Most of Tumblr is pretty canon when it comes to Nico and Will. So that was also pretty shocking because I know that Uncle Rick likes to troll us so much with the characters. and that was a surprise. Apollo starts feeling the guilt and the weight of what his actions as a god have affected the human world. And I think that's really crucial because whenever he does get back to being a god, hopefully he'll remember some of that, since as a god he has a perfect memory, which he states in here like 80 times. Oh, I just wish I had my perfect memory back. Oh, it's so hazy. I just can't bring the right memory to... And people are like, yeah, that happens. And he's like, you have such a tiny head. So we keep hearing about this beast and this triumvirate, and if you don't know, a triumvirate is the way that Rome ruled, because Rome was so big they didn't have enough people to... They couldn't just have one person rule all of it because they couldn't get messages to there. So they divided it into 3. And apparently the 3 most cruel descendants of Apollo have made themselves gods and are now about to attack. Not to mention that they might have been orchestrating the first 2 series because, hey, guess what? Luke said that he had backers. Well, where did he get the Princess Armada, that cruise ship that he had? From these guys. Octavian, I hate Octavian, said that he had backers. Well, who were his backers? These guys. So this is like very crucial to the rest of the series, and I'm not sure how long Rick Riordan had been planning this, but if it was recent, he has done a swell job. He has done a great job at weaving it into the other stories. Like, he's even covering up all of the other, plot holes in the other stories. And I'm like, man, like, he's covering everything. And the story really covers up plot holes, but it also opens up for this whole new world of enjoyment. Okay, so several times he looks back and he's like, I need to call my mom Leto. Or Leto. I think it's pronounced Leto. It's L-E-T-O. And he's like, man, I miss my mom. He says that when he's meeting Percy's mom, who is pregnant, by the way. Percy's gonna have a little sister, and I'm so excited because that just leaves it open for, like, have, like, a little short story where Percy's, like, having to babysit her, and then they get attacked by monsters, and he has to, like, whip out his sword, and she's fully mortal, so she's like, why are you fighting this thing with a pen? And I just think it's gonna be awesome. Although, maybe she can see through the mist, just like his mom can, so this will just be extremely interesting to see where this goes. So let's get into the plot of the story, which is, it's the hidden Oracle. So it turns out that the Oracle of Delphi is not the only Oracle. Oh, there are 5 Oracles, which seemed to annoy Rachel Elizabeth Dare, who, yes, is in this book, because now she doesn't feel that special. She goes, no, you are still my favorite. But there's, like, this grove of trees that has suddenly regrown itself in the woods of Camp Half-Blood, and because they're not being tended, they're whispering and everything, and they're spouting off parts of prophecies and all this, and it's making these campers go insane. Then we finally figure out who the first of the triumvirate is. It is Emperor Nero. Yes, the Nero that persecuted Christians and supposedly set fire to Rome, and then did not come to its aid until it threatened his palace, and just extremely, extremely cruel. Well, these campers that have been led into the woods have now been captured by Nero and are being hung to be crucified. If I read this right, then they are being crucified, and they have already been passed out, and so they are, so they were probably, like, held hostage for a little while, and then when Nero found out that Apollo was coming, he put them up, and they're all unconscious, and it's like one of the most painful, excruciating ways to die, because it slowly suffocates you, and you have, like, nails and stuff. This time they were only, like, rope tied to it, but they were probably already beaten pretty badly, so it was, like, really hard to struggle against that. And man, I was like, this has got to be one of the cruelest people that Rick Riordan could have brought back. And I'm really excited to see how this goes, and I really hope he does. of course, he's made himself a god now, so the best we can do is he has a change of heart and he fades away or he scatters. So we know that Meg is extremely powerful. And we know who her mom is, but we don't know who her dad is. But we know that she was raised by her stepfather. And we also know that Triumphant said that he had power in Camp Half-Blood. And Apollo's trying to figure out who is this traitor. It can't possibly be Meg. It's Meg. Meg's stepdad is Nero, who has made himself seem like two different people to her. There is Nero and then there is Beast, which is so horrible. It's like, it like messes with a kid's mind when you do something like that. You don't want to disturb the Beast, Meg. We don't want to make him angry, saying it like it's a different person than you. And then, first of all, it's bad parenting, and second of all, it's manipulative, and third of all, it's something that Apollo claims that Zeus used on him, so he feels the sympathy for it. And he's trying to convince her what's right and wrong, and she ends up releasing him, sort of. He's not really released. She thinks she's released from this attachment to Apollo, and she follows Nero and goes back after him because he's the guy who took care of her all these years. And I really hope that for once we get a demigod that is redeemed when it comes to their bad decisions and not die, unlike Nakamura or Luke, and which Percy even mentions them. When Percy comes back for the weekend to see how everything's set up, he's like, Apollo, this is your fault. And he's like, only partially. But, like, I see all of these interactions, and I'm so anxious to see what happens next, and I have to wait till October to figure out what happens in the Magnus Chase, and then back to next May to figure out what happens in this one. So, I know that this one was really scatterbrained, but I hope I got all my feelings out about it. Yeah, let me know what you thought down below, and I know you probably haven't finished reading it yet, because look at me being the crazy speed reader person that I am, having finished it already. But I did forget something. Leo has returned. At the end of the book, after the battle, Leo has returned. With Calypso. 3 people is the best thing for a request. So it turns out that it looks like it's going to be Leo and Calypso and Apollo as the next 3 people going on a quest to now find the next oracle, because they need to retain control of all of these oracles and keep the Triumphant out of it so that they can reclaim the Oracle of Delphi and finally get prophecies back, because you can't go on a quest without a prophecy, and so you're caught in a catch-22, or like Apollo likes to say, a catch-88, because that's 4 times as bad. So yeah, tell me what you guys thought of the Trials of Apollo. I loved it. There's so many layers to these Rick Riordan stories, and I don't think I would ever get tired of reading his writing. I can't wait to see what happens next. So yeah, give me a big thumbs up, click that subscribe button, leave me a comment down below, and make sure to follow me on all my social media. That's it for this video.